Do you ever wonder why people in power always claim that they're the ones under attack? Anti-same-sex marriage groups justify taking rights away from LGBT people by saying that same-sex marriage is an attack to traditional values. Anti-immigrant voters blaming their economic challenges on immigrants taking jobs and resources away, cheering their deportation, and politicians yelling witch hunt when someone calls them out on bad behavior. Well, today on Off the Couch, we're going to answer the question, why do bullies often claim they're the ones being persecuted? Today on Off the Couch. And welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Sane. Today we're going to be dealing with a very interesting thing. It's because I had to ask, Brian, why do bullies always seem like victims? So today I'm going to see why bullies often see themselves as victims. This is something called the bully-victim paradox. But before I do, let me introduce you. Hi, Brian, producer.
Happy Monday, you guys.
Who's here. And also Noah's on the board. Hi, Noah.
How's it going, Dr. Greg?
It's good to see you. And also, it's me, Dr. Greg Sane. I'm a psychologist. So we're going to go over 10 psychological reasons why individuals and groups with more power often feel like the ones being persecuted. But because of the political environment, I had to think, even though the examples I gave in the beginning were political, I had to think that if we go through examples from politics, that might cause people to think, well, if you're this side or this side, you're right or wrong. So all the examples I'm going to pick today are from school, work, or social media. And if you can extrapolate that to politics, you're welcome to do it. But I'm just going to talk about examples from those areas. Does that sound good, Brian?
Sounds good.
Okay. The number one reason that bullies think do you ever think the bullies think they're victims? Have you thought about that before, Brian?
Always. It always seems like their excuse is that they're under attack and that's why they're doing something.
That it's just continually bugs me. The people who do bullying behavior think they're victims. And I often see them in very negative light because of that. And I have to confess I do. Because I'll see them and I have a personal reaction to it, like, grow a spine, dude. You're not the victim here. You're the one doing the bullying.
I kind of wish sometimes I would bully the bullies, like truly show them what bullying would be,
Ah, yes, like a character from The Wire. That was a TV show. Well, there was one particular character who was the one who attacked he basically stole from the drug dealers.
Okay.
And he was the baddest one of all. And he was a gay guy, by the way. That was a great show.
I'm going to have to watch that show then.
So let's go for number one. That is defensive projection. Bullies project insecurities, fears, and negative traits onto others. This avoids confronting their own shortcomings or inadequacies. So, Brian, you have an example of defensive projection.
Yes. A scenario would be a team leader micromanages their team and criticizes them for being disorganized and unmotivated. In reality, the leader is struggling to manage their own workload and deadlines, but refuses to admit it. And I feel like we see that a lot in workplaces.
Yeah, I'd have to say, having worked in workplaces for many years, I can say that is very common. It's very common in ineffective leaders. And this is primarily where you see it. So the leaders projecting their feelings of inadequacy and a lack of organization onto the team members and shifting the blame for the team performance away from themselves. So they can say, oh, we couldn't get this project done on time because of my team, not because I didn't push them. Or not because I had poor organizational ability, or not because I couldn't figure this out.
Yeah, because they usually have to manage the team, it falls on them at the end of the day.
Yes. So they claim victimhood, and when the team members express frustration or push back, when the team members are doing that, the leader complains, I'm the one holding the team together, no one takes responsibility but me. And so poor me. And this frames the position of the leader as a victim of an unproductive team, justifying their overall controlling and critical behavior. Sound good?
Yeah, that creates a pretty toxic work environment, I would say.
You're going to see a theme in these. So all of these, when we talk about bullies, we're talking about people who have more power against people who have less power. And whatever that power is, physically, intellectually, in the workplace, there can be all kinds of things. Sometimes bullying does take place between equals, but it's often an unequal relationship, like two people who are, one person has been there longer or is sassier or whatever it is, that they start to attack someone else. What came up for
sorry,
you, Brian?
No, I just have something in my eye and it's irritating.
Well, I thought I really touched him emotionally just then, and I...
No. Sorry about that.
So let's talk about number 2, the distorted perception of power. This is that bullies believe others are undermining them even when no threat exists. So this is, we see this one a lot. The perception justifies aggressive behavior. So you have to look at people in power, and they often will say someone else is undermining them. And even though no threat to that person exists, what is an example that you're able to see, Brian?
Okay, an example for this would be a senior employee feels threatened by a younger, high-performing colleague who has been receiving praise from management for innovative ideas. The senior employee starts undermining the colleague by taking credit for their work and subtly criticizing them in meetings.
Yes. So the bullying could be subtle, where, just kind of cutting them down, like in this example, or it can be more blatant. Do you see any of these, Noah? We're going to have to ask you about school examples, huh?
I have seen some of this, particularly in some of my earlier classes. I guess if you want to take a school example, something as simple as like a group project, right? Not to conflate school with the business world, but if somebody feels like they know more about a certain subject than somebody else in the group, that can be something where the person in the position of power, in this case them having more information, feels like somebody else in the group is undermining them if they make a suggestion.
This is so true. Yes, and we do see that in school. See, I think actually the entire world is just 5th grade. I mean, or maybe high school. But it was certainly, I always say Hollywood is just one big high school. But it seems like all the school dynamics that we learned from the very beginning, our time in the play box, what was that thing called? The sandbox? All of our time in the sandbox is just repeated in the boardroom. So we see it every place. But this could be like the senior, what in the example you talked about, and we can go back to what you said, Noah. The senior employee believes that their authority or position is at risk, even though a younger colleague is simply doing their job and contributing positively. So basically, the person in the group is perceiving their authority or position is somehow at risk. And the position could be actual, like in a workplace, or it could be imagined, like in a group project where you think you're the one in charge, and then all of a sudden you feel your authority is being undermined. Justifying the bullying, the senior employee here rationalizes their behavior by claiming, if I don't put them in their place now, they'll make me look bad in front of the boss. So it's a way to suppress. It's a way to keep down people. And people will be like, I don't want to even deal with this guy, so they'll back off. So the bully often gets what they want. The distorted perception of power creates an us versus them mentality, leading the senior employee to justify sabotaging the colleague as a necessary defensive action. And I see this a lot in corporate America, that sort of kill or be killed type of dynamic that happens, that people want to stay on and like climb the ladder rather than try to support each other, which is often seen as a position of weakness in some corporate examples.
Dang, that's crazy because you see it too in like you said, a younger person that maybe just got out of school that has everything in their brain like fresh, so they're able to like help out with certain projects or anything that somebody that's older or like isn't so fresh or anything like that with certain ideas or innovative stuff that they could feel like they're coming for their spot.
They could feel that, but you know what I would say, if a good older employee there who's been in the example, who's been in that for a long time, would have the benefit of experience and to be able to say, hey, that's an interesting idea. Let's see how this can work. So they could actually take on the idea, but actually make it work or implement it, where the young employee may have no idea how to implement it. So I was watching Abbott Elementary the other day, and Janine,
I love Janine.
good old Janine, who's the star of the show, and she's like a student teacher, kind of rose up in the ranks, and she's doing a fellowship at the district or whatever she's doing, and she's presenting that she wanted to give sign interpretation to this one student who's deaf. And they said, okay, you can do it. They said, yeah, go ahead and do it, but you have to do everything on your own. And she found out she hit every roadblock and every barrier. So what she did do eventually is, because she couldn't get someone to sign on with her, if she had an older, let's say, employee say, hey, I'll help you in this and we'll shepherd you through, probably it could have worked. But because that didn't happen, she kind of had to figure this out on her own. And what she did is she did this big workaround with the family, and she basically got it to happen. Well, I won't give it away in case you decide to watch Abbott Elementary. But it was very, packs it into 22 minutes, a really cute little tied up ending, but it was kind of interesting. But it was a good example of a young employee who had a good idea, but didn't know how to implement it.
I feel like that's a lot of the episodes on Abbott Elementary, where she's got all these like fresh new ideas that she wants to fix everything around the school. And then she realizes she hits all these roadblocks and she needs the help of like the older teachers.
She needs
that
Barbara.
have been there. Yeah, Barbara is always there to help her.
Who does really guide her and actually takes influence from Janine. Barbara's the older student, the older teacher. And, why am I forgetting her name? Brilliant actress. She was in Dreamgirls.
Oh, I'm the worst with names. Don't ask me.
She's a brilliant actress.
But she does have a moment where there's a new young librarian. I don't know if you watched it yet to that point, where she feels threatened by her too.
Oh, Janine feels threatened?
No, Barbara.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
And because she's so used to doing things her way in a certain way, and then like this new librarian comes in and she's trying to implement all these rules and schedules of when the classes can come in, and Barbara is not liking it. So this is perfect, for that example.
Well, I don't know that I watched that particular episode, so I'll have to catch on that.
I'll send it to you.
I believe the actress's name is Cheryl Lee Ralph. Is that who you're thinking of?
Thank you. That is it. Cheryl Lee Ralph. She's amazing. I've always loved her, and I was so excited when she got that series, and she's the breakout star. I mean,
she's great.
She is great. Okay, well, enough about that. So we like Abbott Elementary. Number 3, rationalization of behavior. Actions are rationalized as responses to perceived slights. So these will all carry a theme. It's basically that the bully is seeing things in a different way because of some deficits on their part. So here they're going to rationalize their behavior. Common excuse is they deserved it, or I was defending myself, like blah, blah. It was their fault, essentially. So, Brian, what would be an example from a school setting for number 3?
A scenario would be where a bully is consistently picks on a shy student, spreading rumors and mocking them in front of others. When questioned about their behavior, the bully says, "I'm just toughening them up. The real world isn't going to be kind to them, so I'm doing them a favor."
Excellent. Yeah, that's a great example. And yeah, they're doing God's work because they're toughening up this student that they're bullying. Well,
I'm like, who asked them to?
Well, certainly not the student. But the bully reframes their harmful actions as beneficial to the victim, convincing themselves that their behavior is a form of helping or teaching a lesson, even if it causes harm. Hey, when we talk about anger, and I've gone over this before, but anger is often tied to the belief that somebody does something wrong and that person is a bad person for having done it, and then they need to be punished or taught a lesson. So when we think we're teaching somebody a lesson, unless they asked for that lesson, like they're a student in our classroom, then if we're teaching somebody a lesson without their perceived or explicit request, then we are harming them. because we shouldn't go around teaching lessons to people who don't ask for it.
You're right, but I do have an experience when I was in 8th grade.
Yes.
I was sitting next to a guy in the auditorium, and the kid in front of us kept talking crap about me pretty much because I was a new student that year. And the kid next to me told me if I didn't punch him in the face, that he was going to punch me in the face. And the kid next to me was bigger than the kid that was talking crap about me. So I punched the kid in front of me in the face, and then he stopped. So it like worked out. So I got bullied into like standing up to the bully in a way, which isn't still the way to go about it, but it was one of the rare occasions where it did help me.
Well, then I will
But don't do that. That's just, yeah.
Don't
just
know
an
what to
example
say.
of like, yeah.
I want to punch both of them in the face. Yeah, but, good. Okay.
But it was like you said, he was just teaching me a lesson in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And certainly there are times, I was talking to some people earlier that at a time I was a bully I reacted to a bully by, I was in 1st grade. And I don't even like to tell this story, but now that I've started, let me finish. I was in 1st grade. Now, mind you, I'm a 6-year-old boy, so there isn't much going on here. I was just a little kid. And this guy was relentlessly bullying me, and he was from the next class, And I took my little lunch pail, probably it was a Gunsmoke lunch pail or something like that, looking back, and I took it and whacked him on the head. Well, poor guy had to go to, and I didn't do it lightly. So poor guy had to go to the hospital and opened up a cut on his eye and had to go into the hospital and get stitched up, and he was out for a few days, and they took me to the principal's office, and they were very upset. I can't even tell you how upset everyone was at me, but I was like, but he was bullying me. I couldn't get it to stop. And, whatever I said in my 6-year-old language, that wasn't enough. And I always walked away with very mixed feelings about that, because why was I the bad guy there? Because I caused real harm. And he had not actually caused physical harm on me. He just was
But there is
calling
real
me
harm
names. Oh, I know.
in bullying too. So.
Yeah. No.
I'm happy you hit him over the head with that. You should do it again.
My little 6-year-old self did that. Yeah.
But it sucks because that happens so much in school that like teachers, principals, whatever, parents aren't even listening to the kids that are getting bullied. It gets to a point where it's like, well, what the hell do you do? Like, just keep taking it for the rest of your life? Like,
I think teachers turn a blind eye because it's too hard to continually intervene. So they just allow things to happen, but it does create great harm in the population of students, so.
But I'm glad you shared that story with us.
You got it. I got more. Okay, history of victimization. Many bullies experience bullying or trauma themselves. This isn't exclusively why people bully. And in fact, I make a case, I could do it in another place, but I make a case that most bullies don't even know they're bullies. Because I learned this from a guy who was a bully in my school. And it wasn't a bully to me, but I remember him being a real dick. And I didn't kind of like this guy. Anyway, on Facebook, as it will be, we connected, and he was in a group of students from my elementary school and high school. He was in both. And we were chatting back and forth, and somebody said something about him being a bully. And he said, I wasn't a bully in school. And I think myself and a bunch of other people weighed in and said, dude, yes, you were, and he really had a lot of issues. He was actually so sweet. And he's like, I so apologize. I didn't mean to do things. I didn't realize I was being a bully to all these people. So he was probably somebody who did have a history of victimization, because the guy was just a holy terror. And in fact, he started in my grade and was held a grade back. So he had a lot of issues.
I feel like when they get held back, that creates more issues for them to bully.
Well, because then they're the oldest kid. They're the biggest kid in the class when they get held back. So then they have the most power.
They're also not the brightest if they got held back.
Well, they get that message themselves, but then they're also the kid that is the biggest in the class. So they will kick the next least powerful person down. So they think, oh, I'm being held back because I'm not smart, but I'm going to take it out on these people who are younger, smaller, or whatever.
Smarter. No, that's dumb.
don't
That's
know
mean, though.
about
Yeah. But I can see how that would work.
So this can foster a victim mentality and aggressive behavior in having a history of victimization. So, yeah, we see this. We see this on all the after-school specials. You don't know what an after-school special is. But tell me what history of victimization is in bullies, Brian.
A scenario in a school setting would be a high school student frequently targets younger peers by shoving them in the hallways and mocking their clothing. When questioned, the bully reveals that they were bullied themselves in middle school. The bully might say, when I was their age, older kids did this to me, and this is just how things work.
It's just how things work excuse. Yeah. This is the bully replicating the behavior that they experienced in the past, normalizing the cycle of bullying as a way to regain a sense of control and power over feeling powerless in the past.
And we see this happen a lot, not just with bullying, but a lot of different traumatic things that happen, right? Like we talked about, like when we did the episode on monsters, how that sexual molestation happens usually because it happened to them too, and then it's like passed down.
That is often the case, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. It doesn't guarantee that someone who's sexually molested will do that. That's not the case.
No.
Nor is
same with bullying,
nor is
I'm
it
sure.
saying if you never were sexually molested that you'd never sexually molest somebody. So it doesn't exclude, but we see a high incidence within that population that does it. Yeah. Okay. So let's go to number 5, social dynamics. Bullies feel threatened by others' success or confidence. So when they feel threatened, that can cause a problem. Aggression stems from envy or fear of being overshadowed. Now realize, when I say bullies, this is always someone who has more perceived power. So when they see someone as having success or confidence, it's a threat to their position. What's an example of this, Brian?
A scenario could be one that a high-achieving student is excelling in academics and gaining recognition from teachers and peers. Another student, feeling overshadowed, starts spreading rumors about their high achiever, mocking them, or being a teacher's pet or a nerd in front of others.
Teacher's pet, nerd alert. Were you a nerd in school?
No, I don't think I was a nerd, but I was definitely a teacher's pet because I knew if I was a teacher's pet, I could get away with a lot more things. Which is not the best.
I was a closet nerd, really, because I did, I was on like student council and did stuff, but I really, my people were the nerds.
The nerds.
Yeah, well, they were my people, and they still are. The people who are like the little smarties who do things. And I have to feel like I always was a wannabe nerd. I am. It's true. The bully views the high achiever's success as a threat to their own status in the class or social group. Instead of acknowledging their own insecurities, because a bully could never do that, they attempt to undermine the high achiever's confidence and feel superior. So an own insecurity, like my friends who are, who really, as you know, I have friends who are extremely high achievers, really impressive people. And I sometimes have to go, good for them. Like they can be a professor at a lab and have, sit on all these dissertation committees. I've sat on dissertations before. Let me know that I don't want to sit on dissertation committees. But, people who are I have a couple of another professor at another lab and over at USC, one at UCLA, and good friends and people who head up departments. And they're just an impressive group of people. But I can admit that I am not them. I'm me. So.
But I just never felt like that urge to be upset by somebody else doing well, Like, if anything, I'm happy for people that do well. But that feeling of like, oh, they don't deserve it or I should be doing that instead of them, I feel like that's kind of a weird thought, which I'm sure happens.
No, and I've gotten that from people too, as I've gone through the years, where people got very like, why you and not me? I've been asked that question more than a few times, and I always want to say, I don't know. I mean, I do say that. I don't know, because that's...
Why would people... But do you know why that is, that people react that way?
Because they imagine themselves in that position. Like getting accepted to school, getting accepted at different things, getting cast, in shows or whatever I was in the past, that people will go, well, why'd they pick you?
But we would never, at least I would never question.
No, I might think, oh, I wish I could do that.
Or I wish that was me too,
I would like to do that. Like, and I may feel envy even, like, but I wouldn't see it as unfair in the world that they got it. I would think, well, like if they were given a show, I might say, well, I guess, they like them. Because I don't know.
I always just look at it, it's like, it's not my time right now,
Yeah, or that. I don't know. There are different ways to cope with this. Okay, let's go to number 6, cognitive dissonance. This is a word we hear too much, but it's a good word to know. So let's define it. Psychological discomfort. It's psychological discomfort experienced when a person's actions, beliefs, or values conflict with each other. So it's literally like when you have two conflicting beliefs, or you do something that conflicts with how you see yourself, some kind of conflict that's causing you to go into literally a dissonant thought process, like where you're like, wait, these two things don't line up. So contradictions between behavior and self-image, creating discomfort. Bullies will reframe situations to see themselves as victims here. So when they go through cognitive dissonance and they're beating up on somebody, it's partly what's going on is they have to see the person they're hurting as a victim if they want to maintain their belief that, let's say, they're a good person. Does that make sense?
That the bully is a good person?
Yeah. I'm a good person. I'm just doing this because he wore that weird shirt. So he deserved it.
Got it. Seems a little nuts, but sure.
But no, that's literally how they think.
Wow.
I even wrote, oh my goodness. Wait, just go, let's go on to school setting. You have an example from the school setting. I'm sorry.
You're good.
Won't go to what I wrote here.
Okay.
I'll tell you later. It's coming. It's coming.
A student frequently bullies a classmate by mocking their appearance and spreading rumors. The student believes they are a nice person and struggles to reconcile this behavior with their self-image.
Very good. You see that. The bully, and I keep over-explaining this concept. I just think it's a tough one to understand because cognitive dissonance, we hear it a lot. It's bad, it's thrown around all the time. But we need to understand that this is a really common way that people kind of resolve dissonance in their head. Almost everyone wants to see themselves as a good person. And I often will reject that in therapy. People will say, I'm a good person. And sometimes I'll let that slide. But instead, it's really, are we a good person or a bad person? If you see yourself as a good person, then you're always at threat of seeing yourself as a bad person. But I really try to help people to see themselves as a person, separate from good or bad. So if you see yourself as a person, then you can start to separate out your actions as good and bad. And here you could maintain your belief that, okay, I'm a human being who did a bad thing. And that bad thing hurt another person. And so I need to look at that. So in cognitive dissonance, the bully's discomfort, they see they're bullying, and then they also see themselves as being kind or likable, let's say, popular, friendly, whatever they want to say. So to reduce their discomfort in their head, they justify their behavior by blaming the victim. We think of, with girl bullying, Regina George from Mean Girls. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was
she was a bully.
The best bully I've ever seen. Man, that girl killed it. So the bully tells themselves they deserved it for dressing weird, making themselves a target. I'm just pointing out what everyone else is thinking.
Okay, so I have a scenario that just happened this past weekend like that. I went to one of the gay bars in West Hollywood, Revolver, and there were two older gentlemen.
Older than me?
Kinda. They looked older. Which that's why it
just
was like
asking.
a hard situation to make a choice about what to do, because one was wearing a denim jacket that had Trump on the back.
Ooh.
And the other one was wearing a Trump hat, and one was black and one was white. So it's kind of like one of those things where it's like I just wanted to go up and start swinging because of what they were wearing. You get me?
Well, I would hold that. So anyone who would wear paraphernalia like that to a gay bar would be understanding that they're acting aggressively toward their audience. So when you walk into an environment like that, you understand, oh, he's doing some anti-gay policies. So
that would have been okay.
So I'm not saying going and hitting them would be okay, but I would hold that what they were doing was a bullying behavior. Right. And they would probably go back to me and say, I'm just doing what I believe in. I
think they wanted that reaction.
But they wanted the reaction. Yeah, they wanted to intimidate other people or hurt them or do something like that. Because otherwise...
why would you do that?
I wouldn't wear political paraphernalia to a bar.
To a gay bar.
To a gay bar. Yeah, but I would wear, you go into an environment like that, and I generally like to wear solids.
Yeah. And what did you expect to come out of that,
So, yeah.
But that's what my experience, that's what, when you said about what they're wearing, I was like, well, some people are asking for it.
If you hit them, well, I wouldn't say they were asking for it, then you'd be the bully. Oh. Like the minute you throw the punch, then you're the bad guy. That's why I always try to help people understand in therapy, like, okay, if you threw the punch, because they'll come into me after the fact, I go, but they're justifying it to me. I'm like, but you're the one that threw the punch. You did it, even though you felt justified. So now you're the bad guy. But, well, I mean, you got to understand.
My mom always taught me.
You're the bad guy now.
Do self-defense always. Don't ever throw the first hit.
Well, there's some wisdom to that. But we're going to get to that. Okay, reinforcement from others. I think this is a big one. Number 7, reinforcement from others. Enablers and peers validate the bully's narrative. So the narrative, like what they say. This discourages self-reflection and perpetuates harmful behavior. Like, let's go to Regina George from Mean Girls. But she had those 2 minions around her that would always say, oh yeah, whatever you say. Oh, thank you, Noah. He put a picture of Regina George up. Excellent. She is one of the best bullies out there. I mean,
she really
or
was.
The worst. I don't know, the worst bully, but she was an effective one. So there's the bully. There are the minions surrounding the bully, and they kind of push. They say, oh yeah, you're great. And then there are those who are unknown to the bully who do the bully's who do the bully's bidding. They do what the bully says. And they showed that in Mean Girls too. It's an effective bullying movie now that I'm thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Because in Mean Girls, they say, they show all the people being interviewed who Regina George has no idea what they are, and they're all saying how amazing she
awesome.
is.
She has 2 penny purses.
Yes,
she does car commercials in Japan. Like, they're all living for her.
And those people would be likely to do what she wants.
Yeah, well, there's even the one at the end where she's like, oh, one time she punched me in the face. It was awesome.
So let's do an example of number 7, reinforcement from others as seen through social media.
Yes. A teenage user targets a peer who recently posted a vulnerable video discussing their struggles with mental health. The bully retweets the video with a mocking caption like, "Cry me a river."
Oh, okay. So just to tell a story, and then I want to go into why this is. I saw this early on in YouTube. I remember when YouTube was first starting. And by the way, I went to a pool. This is just fun fact. I went to a pool party, and there was a bunch of people from ABC and some other networks. YouTube was just starting. And I went to this pool party, and they're like, what do you watch on TV? And I'm like, YouTube. What's that? No one knew. And I'm like, how do you guys not know YouTube? Now it's taken over. I mean, but I should have gotten on the ground floor. But I was an early viewer. I really loved it because I would watch all these like user-generated videos. They were really kind of like simple little things. And they put on old movies and stuff. Anyway, There was a woman on there who went on and she had a serious issue with depression, and she was a very heavy woman, and she'd do these videos in her car, and she would talk about her painful life. They were the most open-hearted videos I think I've seen to this day, where she was so honest and so raw. I just felt for her. But the comment section was disgusting. It was one nasty comment after the other about her weight, about how she needs to get her life together. Just nasty, nasty, nasty. And I remember thinking, oh, human beings are dark, especially when they have a wall to hide behind. And that's what happens with the comment section.
Yeah, the
on
comment
YouTube.
sections are bad anywhere, honestly.
Yeah.
That's why I try to avoid ever reading comments unless they're like on a funny post that people are like just adding to the fun. But if it's something serious, I'm like, just reading through the comments, you're going to be upset.
That's why I try to make all my comments positive. I try to do my best with that. Reinforce. So reinforcement. This is the people that, their followers might reply with jokes, GIFs, memes, mocking the original video, reinforcing the bully's behavior. And the bully continues to post similar content. They'll get more likes, possibly escalating the attacks against the person. And then they see their audiences enjoying the cruelty. I said I wouldn't talk about politics, but we see a lot of this politically, where they attack people and then everyone signs on for the attack. And I think this is a really tough one. The consequences for the victim becomes overwhelmed by the bullying, may deactivate their account, stop posting, experience significant emotional distress. We see people get swatted.
You see that celebrities, it happens to them, especially when they post something incorrect or something that a lot of people don't like.
Yeah.
That the backlash that they get, they literally either have to remove whatever they posted or like shut down their account.
Okay, we can talk a little bit of a difference in celebrities. Celebrities are tough because celebrities, they're not rarefied, people that we can't touch. We all have this delusion that the celebrity is someone who is known to us. So if you talk to me about like Sheryl Lee Ralph, like I love her and I feel like I know her and I would like to be her friend. Girl doesn't know who I am and probably thinks I am just the weirdest person in the world. Or she may, but more likely she has no idea who I am and doesn't care. And so if I said something mean to her, I'm thinking I'm doing that to somebody that is a friend or somebody I'm allowed to attack, but all she does is feel the arrow. So it's not very nice, really. I have to look at celebrities and think they're real people.
Yeah.
That is one thing about doing therapy in LA, I can say, is the celebrities that I have seen they're just like everybody else. I don't even know what to say. There's no real difference, except they got to be on TV or movies. So,
just like us.
So anyway, this all reinforces the bully's sense of power and control, and people there's kind of this whirlwind, this tornado of reinforcement that people will keep going and going because they think it's cool. Yeah.
I just never knew how people got the energy to go and attack people online,
It's a good question.
Like I mean, I have enough chores and stuff to do throughout the day than to go and like write out paragraphs that are mean to people that I don't even know.
I don't even know. So number 8, misinterpreted social cues. Natural or benign actions are misread as hostile. So people just doing, have you ever had this where you're sitting there and you're like staring off into space and some guy says, "Hey, are you looking at me?" And you're like, "What? Like, are you talking?" And that was obviously one of these people. They read this as hostile, and you're like, I wasn't even looking to me in their direction. I remember this happened at Knott's Berry Farm.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Some people got angry because I was literally sitting there, and I just have to laugh because I was sitting there like, waiting for a friend, and I was sitting on a bench inside the entrance to a restaurant, and I was staring straight ahead. Probably, I don't know what I was thinking or doing, but the people on the other side were like, "You're staring at us." And I was like, "Huh?
Okay,
what?"
then leave.
I just remember how surprised I was. I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" Okay, they were very upset. Okay, this reinforces the belief that others are out to get them. So, paranoid group, I guess. So let's do a workplace example, Brian.
Okay. During a team meeting, a colleague makes a general comment about how some members need to communicate more clearly. The bully interprets this as a direct criticism of their work, even though the comment wasn't aimed at them.
Yeah, and here we have an example of a guy doing this through doing this like in a virtual meeting, or doing this on typeface. But bottom line is, it can be perceived either in person or virtually. The bully's misinterpretation: the bully assumes that the colleague is attacking their abilities and reputation, even though the person didn't say that. So that's really a confession by the bully to say, "I understand that I'm that person you're talking about." It's kind of interesting. So the bully's reaction: after the meeting, the bully sends passive-aggressive emails and gossips about other colleagues, saying they're just jealous because they can't handle the pressure like I can. Okay. Number 9, this is a big one, just world hypothesis. This is, we believe that there is a just world we all have to live in. And we all this is actually a bias, really, more than anything. It's a type of cognitive bias. The just world hypothesis is that individuals have a need to believe that the world is fair, leading them to rationalize injustices, blaming victims blaming the victims for the bully's misfortunes. Oh my God. So let's go to, this is that I believe that the world should be just and fair, and if I see someone else get something that I don't, then I'm going to take it from them. Uh-huh. So these are like lobsters in a barrel, clawing the next lobster trying to get out and pulling him back down, and them trying to get out. So they're trying to create a just world, but you see it just keeps pulling people down. The just world fallacy indicates that this cognitive bias can cause individuals, including bullies, to view themselves as victims, therefore justifying their behavior as a response to perceived wrongs. And this is the person who says, "I'm a counterpuncher." So they're always trying to say, well, "I'm just trying to even out the world." So give us an example from social media, Brian.
Okay, an example would be a viral post mocks someone who shared a vulnerable moment online, such as asking for help with medical bills. The commenters attack the person, saying things like, "If they manage their money better, they wouldn't need the help. This is their own fault."
Yeah, that's just insensitive and mean. Yeah, the commenters rationalize their harshness by assuming that the person's situations due to personal failings, maintaining their belief that the world is just and people are responsible for their outcomes.
I feel like people think think that way a lot with like the unhoused situation we have too, where they're like, they probably did drugs and that's why they're on the street and stuff like that.
Yeah, and having worked with homeless or unhoused population, as the word is now, because maybe they do have a home, or maybe the tent is their home, but nonetheless, to say,
because we just saw the wildfires make a lot of people homeless.
Yeah, that's true. That's exactly right. But I will tell you that there are many explanations, and it's so complex that for anyone who thinks they have an easy solution, they're an idiot. Yeah. Sorry to say. It's a tough situation. And what we can do is to help the situation. We can think of all these different interventions and things we can do, but we can't just go, "Get off the street," and think that that's going to be some kind of solution, and then get mad when they need funding.
Or same with like this medical scenario that they need help with their medical bills, where sometimes the insurance screws people over, and it's...
If we lived in a country where we had universal health care, that there wouldn't be that post.
Yeah.
But yet, so we blame the person just because we live in a world where Healthcare is really expensive, and some people don't have adequate or enough insurance or means to pay for it. Okay, number 10. This really goes to empathy, but it's called mentalizing. So mentalizing is a type of thing. This is from a study at the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health. They examined emotional understanding in pre-adolescent bullies and victims. This is little sixth grade me getting studied. They found deficits in mentalizing abilities with the bullies, especially in anger and happiness. So when you say, what's mentalizing? That they don't have awareness of their own emotions. So they could be raging with anger, and you could say, you're angry. And they say, no, I'm not. I know adults like this, so I don't know how individual it is to kids. Deficits may lead to misinterpretations of social interactions, and bullies may perceive themselves as victims in certain situations. So mentalizing is literally the ability, as I said, to understand and interpret your own thoughts, feelings, intentions, and it's hard to recognize other people's perspectives as a result. So you can't even recognize your own. You can't recognize others unless you recognize your own, thus making empathy not even there. So we can just say lack of empathy, but I think we need to understand that to have empathy, we need to take a higher view, be able to understand ourselves and be able to understand others. So this is really this process, which we now call mentalizing. It's a newer, or maybe it's been around, but I only was brought into awareness about 10, 20 years ago myself. So it's a key concept of empathy and helps building healthy relationships. Tell me one from school setting, Brian.
Okay, a school setting is where a student mocks a classmate during a group presentation by loudly pointing out their stutter and laughing in front of the class. The bully fails to recognize how humiliating and damaging their behavior is for the classmate. And I've actually, not only in school, but I've witnessed this in the military, and I thought it was the saddest thing you could ever do to somebody with a stutter, like, especially because they pointed them out, and having to be on the spotlight, I think, worsens the stutter. That it's like, it just made me want to cry for them. And it's like, as soldiers, you can't really be like, hey, don't do that to your drill sergeant. But it is pretty horrible to watch somebody do that to somebody that's stuttering.
Oh my God, yeah. The bully may think everyone's laughing, so it's funny, no big deal. They fail to understand their behavior is causing real harm. I mean, this is very ugly.
Yeah, and especially if you're a kid, I feel like school's already hard enough. We're trying to navigate through it as a kid and all the things that come with it, but to be made fun of like that publicly, that would suck.
It does suck. Well, that wraps up the show for today. We're not going to end with, we're going to come back to some more things around bullying because we're not done. We've got more. We've got a whole lot more we can talk about.
Bullying happens everywhere, from school to relationships, friendships, workplace. I feel like it just never stops. Like you said, it's like high school just keeps going throughout life.
But just to take us from number 1, defensive projecting your fears, insecurities, and negative traits on others. Number 2, distorted perception of power, bullies believing others are undermining them even when there's no threat. Rationalization of behavior. Number 3, actions are rationalized as responses to perceived slights, like they deserved it, I was just defending myself. Number 4, history of victimization. Many bullies experience bullying or trauma themselves, so they then pass it on to the next person. It could be a function of social dynamics. Bullies feel threatened by other people's success or confidence. That's the poor nerd in school getting that good grade. Cognitive dissonance. Number 6, that's when we have two conflicting ideas about ourselves, and the bully will think they're a good person even though they do bad things, that they were just being a victim, themselves. That's why they had to do that behavior. Number 7, reinforcement from others, enabling peers to validate. Enablers and peers validate the bully's narrative. That's where we see the minions around Regina George, keeping up with her. Number 8, misinterpreted social cues. Neutral or benign cues are often misread as hostile. That's me at Knott's Berry Farm, staring off into space. Number 9, the just world hypothesis posits that individuals need to believe that the world is fair. And I'm sorry, it's unfortunate to say that the world is not fair. But if you justify your bullying by saying you're a counterpuncher, you probably have this one in a big way. And number 10, mentalizing emotions and social cognition. These are people who basically lack empathy, but it's bigger than that. They lack the ability to understand their own emotion and to understand the impact of their behavior on others and other people's emotions. So that's what brings us to the end of all the bullying that we're going to talk about. We're not done. We'll come back to this and talk a little bit more about bullying, but that wraps up the show for today. A reminder to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars, links to the studies at youtube.com/Dr. Greg. And if you have any questions or topic, hit us up on the socials. This is Dr. Greg, Brian, and Noah bidding you farewell. Be present.